Is 8 o'clock on a Thursday morning. It is September 22nd. I'm first morning meteorologist Eric Burris, and this is Coffee Talk. We get together 7 days a week. We chat about what's going on in the world of weather, and we hopefully get your day started off on the right note. There is plenty to track in the world of weather today. Certainly, you know we are tracking the tropics, and it is quite busy out there in the tropics. We have 5 areas of moisture that we are monitoring. So we'll have the very latest on that. Plus, as we look not only to the tropics, but down the line, could the tropics be impacting our area? We're going to be watching all of it. But first, let's look outside and just see on our Thursday morning. It is a lovely start to our Thursday morning. The forecast is absolutely beautiful, and I'm more than happy to be able to share the gorgeous weather. This morning temperatures are hanging out in the 70s. We are going to be working our way up. It's going to be a hot one, but what I can tell you is that we are looking at drier days ahead. Yeah, how about that? Now our weather computer is finally working. It literally went berserk there for a couple seconds. There are a couple of little showers. Let's zoom in up here around Volusia County, see what's doing, and you can see some of that rain kind of working over toward Ormond Beach, Daytona Beach area. Let's come down here toward Titusville, I-95, working over the St. Johns, eventually getting into Bithlo and communities in the vicinity. And then down here into Brevard County, watching a few showers, but most of the rain that we're watching is down over the Treasure Coast, St. Lucie, Indian River counties. All right. What does our forecast look like? As I mentioned, we are going to be mostly dry today. Only a 20% coverage of a few passing showers. High temperatures around 92. So it is going to be plenty warm, but you know, on the first day of fall, at least we're going to be drying things out, okay? Let's look at the 7-day forecast. Let's chat about it, and then any questions you have locally, we can answer, and then we can move on from there to see what's doing across the tropics. Today, the first day of fall, it begins at about 9:03 this evening. Not really much of a change. We just kind of dry things out these next couple of days thanks to Hurricane Fiona passing off of our east coast. Then looking ahead to early next week, we're going to ramp up the rain chances, especially Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's kind of the guidance that we're getting right now. And the reason is because we're bringing a lot of moisture in. Now, there's a lot of question marks to that, and that's why we're going to spend most of our time talking about the tropics, okay? So that's where we are locally. Any questions, any comments, any concerns? All right. Cool. All right, so let's just move on then, shall we? Let's see what's doing. The kind of bottom line for the entire basin, and it's something. There are 2 named storms that we're watching. You've got Hurricane Fiona off of our east coast. It is a beast of a Category 4 storm. Lifting north, it will be very close to Bermuda over the next few days' time. Then, on the very top of your screen, you have Tropical Storm Gaston out near the Azores, not a threat to, certainly, the United States. In addition to that, there are 3 tropical waves that we're watching along the main development region, or the intertropical convergence zone, okay? This area here off the coast of Africa, kind of recurving, not a huge concern, medium chance of development. This one here, lower chance, but it's this one here that's kind of around South America / the Caribbean. That is the one that we are watching very, very closely. That is Invest 98. You've got the satellite imagery in the box on the bottom left of your screen, and we're going to be running that, of course, through Coffee Talk. We're going to be chatting most about this one because this one has our spidey senses tingling a little bit. All right, so there it is on satellite presentation. Impressed? You shouldn't be. This thing looks like trash, which is fine. The weaker it is, I think just the happier in general we all are. It is not organized at all. It looks as rough can be, okay? It looks like the hurricane hunters that were scheduled to head in this morning canceled it because there's just nothing to go investigate, so why waste the fuel and the mission? It's just there's nothing there for now. Okay, the actual area of low pressure is very near Caracas. It is riding right along the northern shoreline there of South America. Let me look offline here real fast just to see if there was a recent. So it is what? It is 12Z. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock, of course. It's 12Z right now. And I just want to look. You know what? We can look together, shall we? I want to look and see if there was a recent... WinSat or ASCAT pass. 98 invest. Give me a minute. That's interesting. Oh, wrong website. It's this one. All right, hold on. Going there now. All right. Invest 98. ASCAT, we got a pass at 0204. Let's look at it. It's a little old, but it's the most recent pass that we have. And what you could see is the circulate. So what is ASCAT? Okay, let's just start with that. ASCAT, and I explained this last night on WESH 2 News at 11. ASCAT is a satellite that goes through and is able to scan for wind. Okay, it's an incredible tool that we use. Gives us an idea, even when they're not flying like recon missions, it gives you an idea of wind fields, wind direction. And in this case, you know, when you look, and you can see it there in the bottom left corner, and let me just bring it full for you. But like when you look at the satellite presentation of this thing right now, you're like, where is it? Right? Like that's kind of where your brain goes. So what the advantage of ASCAT is it allows you to look in and you can see like, it's kind of like right around the ABCs, right? Like it's right, it's here-ish. It's elongated, but it's like here-ish. You kind of see there's a little bit of a spin, or would be a little bit of a spin there. Now it's probably a little more over here at this point because this was taken. This was ASCAT 0204Z, and it is now 12Z. So, you know, you're talking 10 hours ago-ish when I was still at work last night. So we don't have a new pass of it. The next ASCAT pass will be 9/23. So 1Z tonight. So around 9:15. And then tomorrow morning at about 9:43. So we've got a little while until we get another ASCAT pass. WinSat, another pass coming in at about 6:35. We'll get a WinSat pass. So anyway, it's a tool, but it's not a geostationary satellite. So you have to wait for the satellite to actually make the correct pass in its orbit. So anyway, you don't get it constantly, but when you do get it, it gives you a real good idea of what's going on, okay? So that's where Invest 98 stands organizationally, at least about 10 hours ago, which is the most recent pass of it. I mean, we could tell it just looks like garbage. So Hurricane Center still saying, and you can see in the bottom corner, we'll put more up here. Hurricane Center still saying that this will develop. 90% likelihood over the next 5 days' time. 70% likelihood over the next 2 days' time. Okay. All right. Cool. So we've got that. We've got that taken care of. But what's next? There are so many elements here. So let's just roll through. You know what? Let's look at the raw data, and then we can get into some other stuff. Right. All right. So there's this. Tropics. Of course, I'll sign in. All right. So here's a look at the Raw GFS model. Okay. That big beast east of us, that is Fiona. That is not this system. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll this down so that you could see it. In the far southern Caribbean, you don't see the timestamp on the, excuse me, on the top right. So I've got it on my screen, so I'll read it to you, okay? But I want you to be able to see kind of the progression of it. All right, so there it is. Let's roll through. This, by the way, this is the 6Z GFS. This is the most recent run of the GFS. And I will also add that the GFS is interestingly an outlier within itself. I'll tell you more, but this is the operational GFS that when you think of, oh, the GFS model, this is it, okay? So south of Haiti, this is Saturday morning early. This is 2 a.m. Saturday morning. South of Jamaica, 5 p.m. Saturday. Starting to organize. You can see it's 1,001 millibar low. Starting, all right? You see how it's so far south? Now it's starting to recurve. But according to the GFS, it's now a 971 low. That is Tuesday, September 27th at 2 a.m. Yucatan. Coming in through the Yucatan and then lifting up to the north, bombing out, and then heading into like Baton Rouge area, Lake Charles area. All right, that's the GFS. Let's compare runs. Go back a model run. Kind of more Baton Rouge, New Orleans. Let's go back 2 model runs. It was like Mobile, mouth of the Mississippi, 3 model runs. Florida Panhandle. So there's definitely been this nudging more and more west of the GFS model. Okay? The GFS model is an outlier even within itself, and this is where I think it's very interesting. So let me pull up the GFS ensembles, okay? What is a GFS ensemble? The GFS ensemble is 25 different versions of itself, 25 different GFS versions, okay? So what you're looking at is a bunch of areas of low pressure, but it's 25 different versions of the GFS. And what I wanted to do is highlight the spread. So this is 10:30 a.m. on Sunday. The ensemble's spreading anywhere from way down here to way up here. You're talking about 550 miles of spread, okay? From there, the GFS continues to work closer and closer to us, and you're at about 1,000 miles spread by 9 p.m. And then, of course, from there, it's kind of all over the place. But the one thing that I wanted to point out is when you look at the models as they stand, the ensembles, okay, the one in black is the operational GFS. The greens are all of the ensembles. So the operational is still a little left of center. You've kind of got most of the GFS runs wanting to go a little further west, and, you know, a decent amount of the GFS ensembles going off to the east. If you look at the envelope of just all computer models, though, let's roll this bean footage, okay? What's interesting is that the GFS absolutely is an outlier. Most of the models, once it gets to like the Yucatan Channel, it starts to make a hard right turn. Okay, so we know what the GFS is doing. Let's switch over. Let's look at the European. And this is, you know, the global deterministic model. So this is the operational European 6Z run. And I'll just run through. It only goes out 90 hours, and then I have to go to the 0Z run, but we can do that. All right, so there it is. That's as far out as it goes. All right, so there's the European. Here's the 0Z of the European. All right. Notice it is much more to the right. Remember, the GFS went right for like the Yucatan. And here, the European is going right for Cuba. Then afterward, it kind of turns into Florida. All right. And that timing would be, that is 8 p.m. Wednesday night. That is 2 a.m. Thursday morning. That is 8 a.m. Thursday morning. That is 2 p.m. Thursday afternoon. All right, so that's the European. What about the European previous run? So that's the 0Z. Let's go to the 12Z. 12Z is almost as consistent. So you're starting to see, at least at the moment, you're starting to see the GFS and the European spread out a little bit, right? Here's a way to visualize that. just by looking at kind of their wind plots. All right, and I'm going to stop this. So first things first, European is there on the left. Let's just really analyze this. European's on the left. It's a bit weaker. It's a little weaker, a little longer. That's the very first thing to notice, right? You're starting to get into tropical storm force winds, starting to get into stronger tropical storm force winds, whereas the GFS is like, yeah, we're going to develop this a little quicker. Okay. All right, so that's the first thing to note, because remember, I always like to say, when it comes to computer models, garbage in, garbage out, right? So you just need to analyze this. Let's go back a little bit even. All right, so kind of beginning here, and this is like tomorrow morning. Just by looking at the two, they seem to be initializing about the same, though the GFS seems to be a little further to the north upon initialization. At least that's what it looks like to me. So the GFS wants to develop it a little quicker. The European wants to take its sweet time a little bit more, right? So that's the first thing of note. If it gets stronger sooner, that would be more GFS, at least it thinks. Remember that the operational GFS that you're seeing, though, is an outlier even within itself. All right, so let's just continue through time here. This is around lunchtime on Monday. All right, so now you've got the GFS starting to show 60, 65 mile per hour winds, whereas the European is more like 50, 55 mile per hour winds. All right, and that's where we are starting to get some differences in location and in timing. So here, this is 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning. According to the European on the left, you've got what looks like a hurricane making landfall around Cuba. Whereas the GFS, you've got a hurricane a bit further south and a bit further to the west. All right, then there's 5:30 a.m. Wednesday. Let's just go a little further. That's around lunchtime on Wednesday, right? You've got the European is showing a continuing to strengthen hurricane in the Gulf, whereas you've got the GFS kind of scraped through Cancun, so maybe a little bit weaker. Here you've got, this is 3 a.m. Thursday. We'll move it in a bit. There's 11 a.m. Thursday. Euro showing a hurricane wanting Florida. GFS showing a hurricane more in the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico. And then from there, it's kind of, the Euro showing a storm system rolling through Florida, whereas the GFS is kind of bubbling up a nastier storm heading toward Louisiana. So again, you're starting to see the two models vary. A lot of people love to ask, which model is the better model? Historically, it's been the European, but it doesn't mean that the European always gets it right. It doesn't mean that the European is going to be getting it right here, right? But what it is telling me, either way, is that now we're starting to see some confusion in the models. Now we're starting to see the models vary. If I'm honest, that makes me feel better, because when the models are all tight, that's a little confidence that I don't like. Now that the models are starting to vary, it means, all right, now we need to start chewing the fat a little bit. And so we need to start figuring it out. So at the moment, it's definitely something to watch. Remember, though, look at the date up there. That says September 29th. Today is September 22nd. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. You're talking 7 days from now. The computer models are not perfect. 7 days is a long time away, okay? Steven's asking, if the GFS has it stronger, why doesn't it have it turn north sooner? Because it comes down to the dynamics. I'll show you the kind of upper level dynamics here so that we can understand that. But I want to dive into the European ensembles, okay? Of course, in my weather computer, the European ensembles don't come in until it's an actual system. So let's just back it up and let's do it the old-fashioned way. European ensemble, we showed you the GFS ensembles, right? So the European ensembles, think of it as 51 different flavors. So there's more European ensembles than there are GFS. Think of it as 51 different flavors, though, right? So there are the European ensembles, initialization. right? So they're still pretty tight in agreement. Honestly, they're really tight in agreement near Jamaica. That is 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. Okay, pretty tight in agreement. Pretty tight in agreement. Notice overwhelmingly, though, it's kind of Yucatan off to the east, whereas the GFS was kind of more including the Yucatan, including the Channel, and then including Florida. So the euro certainly is leaning more to the right. I'll get to your comments. I apologize. I just want to get through this. But notice overwhelmingly the European ensemble members do go toward the east. Overwhelmingly, they go to the east. Right? So, to me, the European has not changed. The GFS is changing. The question is now, does the European start to adjust, or does the GFS start to come back to where it was? You know, those are definitely the questions, right? So the wrong button. Hold on. The European ensembles line up with the European operational. The GFS ensembles do not line up with the GFS operational. So I know we're going way deep in the mud here, but it's coffee talk. We're going to do that. So where are we at? Let's just TLDR this thing, okay? Next couple of days, it's being sheared. It's going to stay weak. There's not going to be a ton going on. But late week, like tomorrow into the weekend, development should begin going. All right? Then, by this weekend, that's when I think we are really going to be keyed in on its overall forecast. That's when I think we're going to know basically what's up with this thing. Okay? That's basically where we're at. All right? Until then, we don't have the forecast keyed in. And I was like laughing at this last night. It's like we've all been chatting about this for X number of minutes, but we don't know where it's going. And that to me is quite a funny little thing. All right. So that's where we're at with this thing. Questions, comments, concerns? Now let's chat. Kyle's asking, and let me just pop up. Let's pop this thing up. Kyle's asking, what changes go into each run of the ensembles to produce the variance between them? It's different flavors. That's really what it is. It doesn't have, it's just tweaked. Think of it as like, you wake up every day this month, and every morning it's a little different, right? Like that's the way to look at it is. Sometimes you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Sometimes you wake up on the other side of the bed. That's all it is. So think of it that way. All right. Buenos dias, Maria. Good morning to you. We're on the coast in Edgewater by New Smyrna, so keeping track of this. Julia, absolutely. Sue says, crossing your fingers for the GFS. Oh, yeah. I have a cruise leaving next Thursday to the Bahamas. Should I be worried? Tristan says, no. First off, the cruise lines are not going to put you into danger. But if you just follow, you say next Thursday. So let's just roll through here. Like there's Thursday. If the Euro plays out, maybe you get on the ship, maybe you don't. If the GFS plays out, you got nothing to worry about, right? Let's see here. I'm late to join, but holy moly at the Coffee Talk viewers this morning. Yeah, when the tropics get going, we get some people, right? We get some people. Okay. Kathy's asking for the ACE score. So I didn't make the graphic yet, but I could at least read it off to you. Give me a minute. All right. So ACE average through today is 82.9. We are at 50. So we are still below average in the ACE department, but we're catching up. Brandon says, I have my team GFS on this time around. Hey, Steve says, you can't predict Mother Nature. You can predict it. Doesn't mean you're going to get it right. But that's my entire job is to predict it, right? Sometimes you do better than others, but it's as Phil Klotzbach has so eloquently put it, it's a humbling job. Yeah. Tom says maybe placement will be in between the GFS and the Euro. That will work. And remember, these computer models are going to change 100 times before anything moves anywhere. Richard, how strong is a cold front next week? Yeah, so that's one of the big steering kind of questions. So let's you ready to talk nerdy? Like, this is where we're going to dive into why is the GFS looking different than the European? All right, let me introduce you to the Upper Air 500 height anomaly graphic. What is this dude talking about? All right, let me turn this around. North America. All right, this is where we get nerdy. So what you're looking at is the 500 millibar chart. I feel like I'm a weather professor right now. When I'm working on my long-range hurricane forecast, I study the snot out of this, okay? The 500 millibar chart is where a lot of steering takes place. So this is the initialization of what model is this? This is the GFS. All right, so you've got low pressure, you've got high pressure. All right, again, not surface, but upper level. So let's just roll through time. So there's Fiona. Why is Fiona racing to the north? Because it's trapped between the Bermuda High on the far right side of your screen and this like trough that's lifting it up. And that trough, once they combine right there, which that is 5 p.m. on Friday, once they combine right there, Fiona loses its tropical characteristics and becomes extratropical moving into Nova Scotia. Right? So you can almost see the fluid dynamics of there's Fiona, there's an upper trough, and then as they merge, boom, it loses its tropical characteristics. High pressure in that time frame builds into the south. So there in that little area of blue, that is Invest 98. So Invest 98 is starting to lift to the north, right? And at the same time, there's a strengthening trough. So the question here is the real deal. Why are the models starting to vary? Because it's all about forward motion and timing. In the event that Invest 98 can feel that weakness, it's going to get pulled rapidly to the north. If not, watch what builds in after. It's this area of high pressure here. You see that yellow? That area of yellow of high pressure pins the storm system to the south. And then as that high pressure starts to erode, that's when it starts to go. And you can kind of see, according to the GFS, there's like an upper low that's going to develop over Southern California, helping to drag it a little further to the west. So you can kind of see it gets pinned between high pressure and then wants to get attracted to low pressure. So that, again, upper level, that's the GFS. Let's switch over and look at the European thinking, because the European is a very different scenario. All right, so here's the European. All right. So there's Fiona getting absorbed. Same, right? High pressure building in. There is Invest 98. I know I'm nerding out here, and I'll get to more of your questions and comments in a minute. But there's the storm system. But notice the high, if we were to look at the differences here, the high is much weaker on the European. This trough develops much earlier. That's why the European wants to go further north sooner, right? It finds that weakness. Let's go, let's just take this very image. Let's go right here. You see how the European's got that strong trough there? Let me switch over to the GFS real fast. The GFS, it's a bit weaker, right? So that's where that plays in. The exact timing of the upper level dynamics. And this is where, obviously, I'm not showing that stuff on television because I've got just a couple of minutes to track the weather. But if you just look at these two models, the operational models side by side, that's why the Euro wants to turn a bit earlier than the GFS, because the Euro finds that weakness. Let me level with you, friends. This is not set in stone. It's all going to have to do with how long does the storm system stay slow? How long does the storm system stay weak? When does it get to the Central Caribbean Sea? There's 1,000 different variables, like think about when you were in school and you had to solve for X. Man, what a pain in the neck that was. Well, imagine having to solve for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, and then putting out an answer, right? All of this at the moment is somewhat theoretical. And that's the stuff. That's the tough part. All right. Yukon, all year long, Eric said buy one extra item for hurricane season each grocery trip. If we followed this advice, we aren't panicking. No, and you shouldn't be panicking. No. What are you guys talking about, viewers? I see 878 right now. Remember, we're over different channels as well. What are the tracks of the two previous recycles of the Florista? Gulf Coast crossing the Florida Peninsula. So the European, I mean, if we're just looking at the LRC elements, the long-range forecast elements, the European is the most likely scenario with that. Roxanne, if the Euro, at what point do they begin canceling flights from MCO? I have a flight scheduled for Wednesday. When the winds get to a certain criteria, I think it's 35 miles an hour. Yeah, but we just, at this point, we don't know yet. Important to know that. Okay? Becca says, and this is true, referring to computer models. Computer models are guidance, not gospel. And that's why we look at the ensembles in addition to the operational, because you need to lift the hood up. You need to see what they're going with. And by the way, a big part of this that we haven't even mentioned is the intensity plots. Here's the intensity models. Keeping it weak until this weekend, and then into next week, you can see they're strengthening. Most models bringing it to Cat 1, 2 intensity, but you can see there's one model making a run for major hurricane status pretty quickly. Important to note, in addition to all of this, that the computer models are weakest on intensity, and yet it's the intensity that really plays the most into this. Yukon says I should work on the master's and PhD and become a professor. I feel like it's fun to get a little nerdy with you guys and gals, but if I lived in the nerdy factor, I just don't know that would be for me. I love taking the nerdy stuff and making it less nerdy, or at least trying. Whether or not I succeed, I don't know. TD's asking, what category is expected at Landfall? Man, no clue. If you just look here, if Landfall would be somewhere Wednesday, Thursday, you could see it's on its way up. But we don't know where Landfall is. If it's further west, then there's more time to develop. So that's why, you have to look at all the computer model plots, You look at all the ensemble plots. That's what we know, is that models are pretty tight in agreement. Something's going to work toward the Gulf of Mexico. Outside of that, outside of the Gulf of Mexico, we don't know. And that's not fun when we're talking about tracking tropics, because you want to have a good idea. You want to know where these things are going. Oh, you know what? I forgot. Hold on one second. I need to take that one is a statistical model. It's not. I meant to take that off. Hold on. Stand by. I always say this, but it's like, yep, not good TV. Sorry. It's not a statistical model, a trajectory model. All right. Anthony, if I've learned anything watching these things, the track can shift 50 to 100 miles a few hours before expected landfall and drastically change storm's impacts. Case in point, Hurricane Matthew. Case in point, Hurricane Charlie. Case in point, almost every hurricane I've ever tracked. One of the few hurricanes that didn't, Anthony, was Hurricane Andrew. That thing, once it developed, just headed due west. That was a wild one. It just went west. Yeah. The strike not going to Texas, stop saying that. I don't think I said once, Tommy, that it's going to Texas. Keep trolling, Tommy. You're going to get banned. I saw this meme and I made it, and I was waiting for the perfect time to show it. Here's my forecast, though, when it comes to stuff the next couple days. Areas in yellow might get a hurricane. Areas in yellow might not get a hurricane. I saw the meme. I don't know who made it originally, but I loved it. And I was waiting for the right moment to pull it out. I think we're at the right moment here, right? I can promise you I'm not going to hype the tropics. I can promise you I'm going to do everything I can to give you the data. And I will also add that some of my colleagues, not at WESH, I think everybody at WESH is pretty good, but some of my colleagues hate showing long-range computer models. Oh, it causes undue fear. Well, my perspective is you're going to see it. You can have access to it online, or you could see hypers sharing it. So why would I not share that information with perspective, right? That to me is the most important part. Perspective. All right. Sabirs is asking, what does the BSR show, if anything? Yeah, I don't have that dialed up. Give me a few seconds and I can get it dialed up. Stand by. For those of you asking, what is the BSR, right? Like, let's just start there. The BSR is a long-range forecast technique that we use and will be using a lot here in the next few months. But it's a teleconnection. It's a way to look and see if there's, another pattern to this. Okay. All right. So here's the BSR upper level. Give me a minute here. All right. Stop. All right. So it's that 570, 572. And you can see it's kind of working west and then lifting north. But you've got to remember, it's showing it east of Florida, southeast of Florida, but it's there. So that's the part of the pattern that the BSR is showing it. Again, you have to kind of take it a few hundred miles this way, a few hundred miles that way. So it is showing a recurvature, which would lean, again, that would lean a little more toward the GFS. But at this point, I think that this is the graphic that's the best. You might get a hurricane. You might not get a hurricane. No big deal right now. We got to watch. All right, questions. Lisa, the A-Bear. Oh, yes, the A-Bear box. Is this wanting to head into the A-Bear box? Yes, it is. There is the A-Bear box. If you don't know, if you haven't watched Coffee Talk, if you're new to Coffee Talk, the A-Bear box was named by meteorologist, is it Richard A-Bear? Good gravy, I can't remember. Anyway, he found that these two boxes, the one on the right side, usually early hurricane season, the one on the left side, usually late hurricane season, if hurricanes moved through those boxes, they should raise eyebrows for Florida impact. And the way he did this is he looked at Florida hits and said, all right, where was there a correlation with all these South Florida hits that had in common? And what he found is that decent storms that moved through these boxes, made up a pretty good amount of the South Florida storm systems. So, yeah. Sharon says, I'm grateful for you. Amazing to be informed when so many have no idea. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate that. John says, I'm assuming that the euro is the European, GFS is American. Yes. Why is the American so less trusted, and why can't we get more ensembles in the GFS? So the European, for as long as I can remember, has been just clearly the better model. And then about 3-4 years ago, the GFS started doing great. And now it's kind of neck and neck. The European, though, does have twice the number of ensembles than the American. Yeah, the European has 51 and the American has 25. I don't know why they haven't gotten more. I will say there's brand new hardware. So the GFS is about to get a massive computing power upgrade. And I want to say that the computer running the GFS is like the third most powerful computer on the planet, or at least the newer version. So there's that. Sidebar, it won't be for long. The new computer is not. But right now, the GFS is run in Silver Spring, Maryland, with a backup supercomputer in Orlando, Florida. Did you know that? That's not the case with the new one. I think it's out west, the backup. But it's just kind of it's a fascinating thing. All right. Tommy's asking, why is the GFS going west? We talked about that already, sir. Cynthia says you manage just the right balance between nerdy and silly, like other social media weather. Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jeffrey, my mom lives in Auburndale. If the storm threatens the Orlando area, will you be doing wall-to-wall coverage on social media? Yes. I don't know if it would be on my pages or if it would be on the. It would certainly be on the WESH pages. But yeah. Thank you for the nerdy. Data helps us prepare. Thank you, Christy. That's my goal, right? That's my goal, is to be nerdy and use that to give you some perspective and then allow you to ask questions and get through there. Yeah. All right. I need a moderator. That's fine. That's fine. Paul's asking any info on Invest 99. It's not an immediate threat, so we're going to watch this one. Yeah, let's focus on the threats that we have. You can't sit at our yellow line table. Oh, man. Oh, man. All right, Tommy's getting blocked. I could at least moderate a little bit. I'm sure there's mutual respect among meteorologists. There is. You know, we're all in this together, right? Brian said, you said the BSR leaning toward the GFS. If recurving, wouldn't that mean it's leaning toward the euro? It's leaning toward the euro. Did I say GFS? I meant the euro. Yeah, the BSR. It's leaning toward the euro. Isn't it Paul Hebert? It might be. What did I say? Pete Hebert? Oh, man. I'm obviously not talking well this morning, so thank you for questioning me to help me get my brain on track. Tell me the holy truth, Jessica says. Do these invest storms ever not form? Like, oh, we're talking about it for so long and it just went away. Absolutely. And that is a possibility here. You know, it made its way ashore on South America last night. It looks like it's kind of come back out around the ABCs, but yeah, they do sometimes not form. Yeah. Sarah, out of pure curiosity, what did the GFS and Euro say for Fiona's paths? Well, I don't have it memorized, but I would say at one point or another they were both right, and at one point or another they were both wrong. Yeah, there's so many runs, you know. Amber, I think it's rude to tell someone we've already talked about that. That was a deep dive that I spent like 15 minutes on, and it's not something I can just briefly get into. Honestly, I will answer any question 1,000 times, but that's a much deeper dive. But thank you for sharing that you think that I was rude. I appreciate that. I apologize that. Kenneth, ASCAT, define. Advanced. Let's Google it. ASCAT. The advanced scatometer. I knew it was that. The advanced scatometer. There you go. Oh, well. Let's see here. Love these coffee talks. We always watched Lee Zach when we were in Kansas City for school. Love how you track with him. Oh, he and I chat all the time. Thank you very much, Nina. I appreciate it. Joel says, Coffee Talk has made me a weather nerd. To be honest, this is interesting. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Arthur, why are invests always in the 90s? So in the database of things, storms get numbers. Every storm gets a number. So case in point, looking at the map, you've got 98, 99, right? Fiona, A, B, C, D, E, F. I believe Fiona is... Let me just check the ATCF numbers. Fiona is AL07. Gaston is AL08. So in the database, I'm going to show this to you, and you're gonna just laugh because of how like rudimentary this is. Stand by. All right, so this is the data. This is the database. All of the tropical stuff that you see is here. So in the database, AL01 was PTC1 / Alex, AL02, AL03. So AL07 is Fiona, 18 kilobytes worth of data because it's been around for a while. AL08 is Gaston, 4.9 kilobytes of data because it's not been around a while. And literally you can click on it and it's raw data. Yeah. So in the database, there's tropical systems get AL, and it's the code is ALXX year. So AL08 2022. So Andrew would have been AL01 1992, right? So why are the invests always in the 90s? Well, because they're off in their own world. So theoretically, we want to make sure that if we have 89 storms, that they don't get into the invest numbers. So it just keeps them completely categorized separately. So you've got the big gap, AL06, AL07. Then you've got your invests, AL97, AL98, AL99. And then EP is Eastern Pacific, EP01, EP02, EP03. So super nerdy stuff. Super nerdy stuff. Yeah. All right, let's see. Any other questions we have? People are ridiculous. Nah, it's fine. I don't mean to be rude, but it's, look, everybody's prerogative. Do you want, if you think I'm rude, it is what it is. What can I do? Kevin says social media is brutal. That's it. Yeah. You can rewatch Coffee Time. Well, and you could back up. It's just, there's a lot to that element. Yeah. Taylor, I've been in listening mode, but I love Sassy Eric still. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Stephanie says, I too have become a weather nerd. That's okay. At least we have a place to go. Well, and hopefully, we can all be here together nerding out. That's my goal. 5 years of respect. Thank you, Beth. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Rita says, I went on my own nerdy deep dive last night when at bedtime with my daughter decided to ask 1,000 questions about how hurricanes form. What makes them move? How do we know where they're going to go? Oh, yeah. Justin, LRC pattern, ? It was already answered for me, but the newcomers might want to know. Yeah, so the LRC is one of the long-range forecast techniques that we use. If you're new to Coffee Talk, I'll just share with you a shameless plug. Every year on March the 1st, I put together a hurricane season forecast. And this is a part of the pattern that ties back to November 5th and November 6th of last year. Based on this pattern, I've highlighted this area as an area of risk and essentially timed it out this way. So this graphic was put out March the 1st. Mid-May, storm system did not develop tropically, but there was a storm system. Late July, storm system did not develop tropically, but there was a storm system. And here we are, late September, and this is kind of the shoreline that we had highlighted months ago. Like, think about it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're talking 6.5 months ago, this pattern showed up. And the way that you can compare them is by looking at, this is the 500 chart, so the best way would be to do that. So that's the 500 chart. Let's go to when it would be like near us, right? So there's that. And what you would do is you would come over here, November 5th, 2021. So, sugar. Copy image. So this is the, excuse me. So this is the 500 chart for that day in November of last year. All right. So you've got like a low in the Pacific Northwest. You've got a low, a low and a trough. And this is the model. You've got your low and you've got your kind of weakness in the Pacific Northwest. So there's your low in the Pacific Northwest. There's your trough out east. So what you do is you just kind of compare the 500 charts. And that's how you can kind of gauge to see if this fits that pattern, which it does. Yeah, which it does. And also kind of lowering pressure out around the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Notice kind of lowering pressure approaching the Dominican Republic and Haiti. So it all ties together, which is fascinating. That's a part of our long-range forecast. I will tell you, I'm putting together my next one. We are going to be starting to work on that. It's September 22nd. The logging has already begun. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? The logging has already begun. All right. Let's see here. It's amazing the folks who come to take a state board test and never look at a single website. Oh, there's that. Oh, Linda, you love my sense of humor. Thank you. Some people find it rude. That's okay. Oh, well. Becca, I appreciate you. Now I can tell my Eric that, yes, I watched my Facebook husband. Mwah. And thanks to your Eric for his patience with me. Tom, do we anticipate rapid intensification? Or let's say, are the conditions favorable for it? The conditions are absolutely favorable for it. And I think that that's a part of the concern here. Look into the Caribbean. From Jamaica over to the Yucatan Peninsula, that is the highest tropical cyclone heat potential in the entire basin. Yeah. Rapid intensification is likely. Low wind shear. Yeah. Sharon says respect. Spect. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it. Billy, how confident are you about whatever 98 may become hitting somewhere on the west coast of Florida? I'm not confident just because, the LRC, the long-range forecast that I use, does dictate that to be the case. But I am not taking that, but with a grain of salt. I'm confident, though, that somebody's probably going to get a storm. Given those models, given the consistency of those models, given the overall patterns, Yeah. Brian, telling someone you already covered it allows more information to be shared. Correct. And reminds folks they could always watch the replay. Correct. And pick out the info that they need. Correct. I certainly don't mean it to be negative, but think about it. We've got hundreds and hundreds of people, and I want to make sure to get it all taken care of. All right, other questions here. Are we going to get anything on the Southwest Florida side? Don asks with like 1,000 exclamation points. First off, don't yell, Don. You could not. We'll see. It's too early to know, yeah? Vivid Saunders. Eric, has the Hurricane Hunters flown lately through 98? They flew in last night, didn't find squat. So they ended up dropping a ton of drop-ons, sampling the environment, trying to get that data into the computer models. So hopefully we'll continue to get better stuff. Thank you very much. Armando, good morning to you. Would you ever go live when putting together the BSR? Well, the BSR is just data. You mean the LRC? We talk about the LRC constantly, and then when it comes to putting out our hurricane forecast, March the 1st, what day of the week is that this year? March the 1st is a Wednesday. So Wednesday, March the 1st, mark your calendars, we will be publishing our hurricane season forecast. And I will be working feverishly. Literally, the work has already begun. But really, it's about October 10th that the new cycle starts. So from October 10th to March 1st, I'm going to be super, 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 super busy. Super busy putting together that next hurricane season forecast for next year. Anne says, you cannot make everyone happy, and goes on to say, you are not tacos. That is correct. The only thing on the planet that makes everyone happy is tacos. I'll agree with that. Do you think that the Euro or the GFS is more accurately modeling this storm? At the moment, I would say that the Euro is. The GFS is kind of moving around a bit, and the Euro is pretty consistent. The Euro seems to have a better handle on it. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. All right? Thank you, Chris, buddy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. Some don't realize that sometimes you are yawning with us at midnight, putting in 100%. Oh, thank you, Sharon. It's yeah. But when I got to bed last night, it was 1 a.m. And, I kissed Jeannie goodnight. And what was I doing at 1 a.m.? I was texting Jeremy Nelson watching the 00Z model runs coming in. And then at 5 a.m., what was the very first thing I did when I woke up? Looking at some of the 00Z Euro, waiting for the 60 to come in. Like, this is pathetic when you really think about it. All right? Yeah. All right. That's what I got. Susan says she hates tacos. I don't even know what to say to that. All right. That's what I got. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, A, you can watch the rewind to this. B, we'll chat again. I'll do another one at 3:30 today, okay? I'm not going to do a night side one because I assume whoever's working tonight, I would assume it's Alex. I assume he's going to do one. If he doesn't, then maybe I'll do one. We'll see. But I will see you at 3:30, okay? We'll look at the latest model trends there and go from there, okay? Yeah, we'll be watching. But if there's one graphic that I want you to remember, I made this yesterday afternoon. If there's one graphic for you to take from this, everybody, if there's one graphic, hold on, good gravy. The computer's mad at me. I'm going to wait because I want you to see this graphic because it's fun. I already showed it, but we're going to show it again. I'll wait, computer. No, it's fine. It's fine. The world will wait for you. Thank you, Patty. I appreciate it. All right, here. This is the graphic I want you to see. Just remember, if you're in the highlighted area, you might get a hurricane. If you're in the highlighted area, you might not get a hurricane. Don't freak out, people. Plenty of time to track this. We're going to do it. I will promise you one thing. I am not going to hype. What I also promise is that I'm going to give you all of the information, and we'll go through this together. All right? I will see you today at 3:30. Now on to other calls, and I'm going to try and get a nap in at some point today. Bye, y'all.